Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Niblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get it. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. We've got people in the comments already. We've got Deeded here getting the request in for Kempe. Kempe's near the top of the list this week. Steve is in here. Monday nights are back. Yes, we are. Nate loved the Would You Rather segment on the Mega Show this week. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was looking for feedback on that, so I appreciate we've got a few positive reviews of the Would You Rather segment. So, yeah, I think that might be something we might have to keep going. Steve also says, in the Cacuffle, if someone offered you Batherson for Timo Meyer, who would you rather? I already checked. You would get 2 less games played during the playoffs. Yeah, that sounds about right. Ottawa plays 11 games, 2 off nights in weeks 22 through 24. And then I believe New Jersey is 9 games, but I think they have 5 off nights. So, yeah, giving up some total games played, but more off nights with New Jersey. Um, I think that Batherson is safer. I think, in my opinion. Yes, he could go cold again. I don't think that's the most likely scenario, though. Um, he's always been on the top power play unit. He's a core piece of that. Um, I think Batherson is probably a little bit safer, a little less likely to ghost you, especially with the extra 2 total games played, even if they are on heavier nights. Maybe, you can look ahead and see how badly you need those off nights. If you have, a lot of players on your team that don't have a lot of off nights during those weeks and you want to try to match that up, maybe that would kind of make up your mind for you in one way or another. I think Meyer definitely has a far higher ceiling, but Batherson is probably a little bit safer, especially with the extra couple of games played. Toronto Dave is in here. Hashtag 0G. Appreciate you. CG, 12 team points, no riffs. Officially done with Timo. Playoffs, weeks 23 and 24. Weekly locks. Best waiver options. Svechnikov, have Aho and Burns already. Not a fan of triple stack. Giroux, Slavkovsky, or Ben. Yeah, that's interesting. With no peripherals, don't blame me for being done with Timo Meyer there. Svechnikov, Giroux, Slavkovsky, or Ben. Ben has been pretty bad for a hot minute now. They've added to this team, and his line feels more and more like the third line every single week to me. Slavkovsky, I think, has a good ceiling here. That's definitely valuable. Montreal does play 4 games in each of weeks 23 and 24, so that's of benefit to you for sure. What's Ottawa? Ottawa is also 4 games each of those 2 weeks, so that's nice. And Carolina, 3 games, 2 off nights, both of those weeks. So I don't think I hate the triple stack. When you're so specifically looking at these weeks, the fact that it's weekly locks means you don't really have to worry about the off nights, so you are more looking at the total output over the 4 games. Yeah, it's not been, I think, if you ask me, could Slavkovsky be the best option here? Yes, he could be, but if you're asking me as of today, I don't think so. The one thing I'm thinking about with Svechnikov is, in a short-term scenario like this, you're already betting on Aho and Burns to have a good weeks to win, right? Like you're already basically making that bet by rostering and playing those players. So it stands to reason that if they play well, if they score a lot of points, then probably Svechnikov gets in on at least some of that as well. That's not a bad route to go. The fact that's potentially keeping me away from that is just that Svechnikov plays one less game in each of those 2 weeks than the other options you're talking about here. But Svechnikov is the best player in my mind. I think I would go Svechnikov, but I don't think it's a dunk by any means. Interesting thought experiment there with the weekly lock. Josh asked Jarvis versus Hurdle. I'm going to say that is. Seth Jarvis versus Thomas Hurdle. Hurdle's been on a bender. I'm actually going to put these guys in the sheet and see what we come out with. The points haven't quite been there the last few games. Obviously, this goes back before the Four Nations break. Jarvis has the points, but none of the underlying stats, which is kind of ironic. I think I'm going Jarvis there, but it is pretty close. Yeah, give me Seth Jarvis. Final answer. CG, aside from Canes, other guys play 4 games. Oh, yeah, going back to the previous. Yeah, I think I would go Svechnikov, but it is very, very close. Mr. Kevin, yeah, I liked Would You Rather. A couple of my players were on it. I like the takes. All right, appreciate that as well. Jordan, hey, Nate, if Nichushkin returns Wednesday, in what order would you drop these players to activate him? McCann, Schmaltz, Terry, standard Yahoo points league. So standard Yahoo, I believe, still has plus minus. I haven't thought about this in a little while, but I believe, let me see if I could just Google this. Somebody can give it to me in the comments too. Scoring categories in fantasy hockey. Yeah, they still have plus minus. Okay. Yeah, so with plus minus, that obviously hurts Terry the most, but it's not really necessarily beneficial to any of these guys. Very close between all three. I think I'm the most scared of the Ducks just kind of going away over the back end of the season. It's not like the most likely scenario, I don't think, in my mind. I think that these guys all have enough to play for, to put an audition out for next year and their role in the team next year, that there's enough to keep them going. And I think Anaheim is a better team this year than they have been in years past for sure. But yeah, Schmaltz is going to have his role. He might go cold, but he also will get hot at certain times. They got Cooley back. That's going to mean good things for the Utah offense in general. Jared McCann is hard to drop just because I actually think he has the high ceiling of those three. Yeah, tough look here. It's between Terry and McCann for me. I think I would say Troy Terry, but yeah, again, really tough question. You're asking the right question. All right. Mr. Kevin in a bangers, assuming Bichsel isn't really hurt. I actually still don't know how to say this guy's name. I should probably look it up. Lian Bichsel. How do we pronounce this? Somebody's got to give me the pronunciation here. Bichsel. Okay. That's actually easier. Bichsel. All right. According to the 2023-24 NHL pronunciation guide, it's Lian Bichsel. Got it. All right. Now that we've cleared that up, assuming Bichsel isn't really hurt, would dropping Dunn or Letang be fine? And which one do you think? I would drop Letang of those two, but yeah, I think Letang is a cup below Dunn for sure. I think Dunn is a more effective player at even strength, even if he's not getting top power play time. I think that's still the better route there. Nestle Swolehouse, Meyer for Vetrano. I'd be giving away Meyer playoff weeks 20 to 22. Okay, that's a little different than what we typically see. So let me figure out what that looks like. So Anaheim actually has a pretty good schedule, especially the first couple of weeks there. 4 games, 3 off nights in weeks 20 and 21, and then 3 games, 1 off night in week 22. And then go to New Jersey, 3 games, 2 off nights, 3 games, 0 off nights, 3 games, 1 off night. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. Vetrano is especially good in leagues that value shots and hits. So if it's Bangers Cats, or if it's a league that values those things highly, then in terms of point weight, then I think that's more points in Vetrano's favor. I don't think it's a bad deal. You're getting more games played. You're getting more off nights, especially if that you need those off nights to open up the rest of your roster. Yeah, I can get behind it. Josh Meyer, Yossi sell high-ish. I don't know if Yossi's done enough as of late to warrant a sell high tag. He's got 3 assists, no goals in his last 5. Um, I tend to think you're not going to get significant value for Josie if you're going to trade him right now. Um, I think he kind of is what he is. I think you're probably not going to get more than you're not going to get a better deal than what Yossi is going to do on your roster, most likely. Also, as Lehkonen worth holding on to? Yeah, right now, I definitely think Lehkonen is worth holding on to. And see if there are any new practice lines as of today. Yeah, so as of today, there's nothing new. Yeah, just whatever they ran with at the end of the game there. Colton McKinnon, Lehkonen was the top line. So yeah, as long as he's on top line and or top power play, I think Lehkonen is probably worth hanging on to. E says choose to rest of season, including fantasy playoffs, McMichael, Byfield, or Slavkovsky. Probably going to go. This is tough. Connor McMichael is a player that I was very high on earlier in the year, and then these underlying numbers have just not been there last little bit. The point scoring has come back up. At the beginning of the year, he was doing the thing, like the underlings looked really good. He was even outperforming those really good underlings. Then there was a massive stretch where he just completely disappeared, fell off the face of the planet, got demoted down the lineup, off the top power play, out of the top 6, all the rest of it. And now he's back in the top 6, and but yeah, he's again lost his top power play. So I think I'm going. Byfield has also lost his top power play, but he does have, I think, one extra game played in the playoffs. I think I'll go Slavkovsky and Byfield there, but very close. Josh Mayer, keep Strome or Jenner or both playoff bound with a bye. Yeah, if it leans a little bit more, like if it's a points league and it leans a little bit more towards point scoring, then Strome I think is definitely going to outscore Jenner. But if you need like bangers cats kind of stuff, then I think Jenner could be the option there. Even in bangers cats, honestly, I think I might go Strome. So I'll say Strome. Michael Rolland, hey Nate, 2-part question. Really need to shore up my decor going into playoffs. I was thinking about trading Brat for Cider as a 1-for-1. It's a points league. My other forwards are Boldy, Ehlers, Mac, Natchez, Hagel, Fiala, Genther, Marner, Konechny, Nuke, and Thompson. Good idea. My other D guys are Yossi, Marcy, Faber, and Ekholm. So yeah, you're basically dealing from a position of strength to try to shore up on defense. I don't know if Cider's necessarily the guy I'm looking for in a points league. Maybe you have a really high weight for. If you have a really high weight for bangers, then obviously Cider does that and does that a lot. I I think it would have to be a league in which there's pretty significant bangers weight for me to do that particular trade, but I like where your head's at in terms of trading from a position of strength to shore up your position of weakness and then still kind of leave yourself open to be able to stream at forward throughout the fantasy playoffs. Never annoying. I appreciate you. All right. Quinn Hughes, sell or keep? Yeah. So Quinn Hughes, I I think you're keeping. I think that the most likely scenario is that Vancouver does sort of stabilize somewhat over the last little bit of the season. I don't think you're, again, it's a spot where I don't think you're going to get a really good value for Quinn Hughes now that he's dealing with injury. It seems like he's going to play through injury for basically the rest of the season, at least at some level. And so I don't think you're going to get the kind of value that you should get for Quinn Hughes if you're going to trade him because people will be worried about that injury, and rightly so. So yeah, I think it's probably a keep unless you can get like absolute full value for Quinn Hughes, which in my mind is like, yeah, probably a top. Yeah, if we were redrafting today, Quinn Hughes would easily go in the mid-second round probably as a fantasy pick, if not higher. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. CJ, appreciate you. Need merch? DM me. That's all I'll say. DM me and we'll figure it out. Best fantasy content out there. Appreciate you for that. Yeah, like and subscribe. That would help. Do appreciate everybody who does that while they're watching the live stream here. Josh Mayer, Kaprizov worth the IR non-keeper league. Yeah, if you've got a free ad in some spot and he's available, I'm assuming he's on your team and you're just wondering whether you should keep him on the IR. Yeah, I do think it's a player that maybe he doesn't come back for fantasy at all this year, but it's a player that you have to keep because if he does come back, he will absolutely win you your league. Josh also has three goalies, heavy goalie points in current points league. Can't speak. Aiden Hill, Ilya Sorokin, Linus Allmark keep all three or drop one for playoffs. Um, that's an interesting question. Um, it would depend to me. Like, I would love to look ahead and try to figure out a little bit of whether they'll be playing on the same nights a lot. You know, you don't. What I don't want to get into is a spot where I have these three goalies who are, in a heavy goalie points league, getting volume from goalies is actually pretty good because over the long run, the goalies will score a lot of points, even if, there's a few bad games here and there. Over the long run, they should score a lot of points. The problem becomes if you're rostering all three of these goalies and they're all playing on all the same nights, and so you end up having to bench a goalie every night that you think you'd be playing them. That would be a problem. Sorokin does have a decent number of off nights, especially in weeks 23 and 24. So that part is probably making me feel a little bit better about keeping all three. All three project to have pretty good volume. And so that part I like. Yeah, I think at this point, you can look ahead and try to figure it out for yourself and try to figure out what the likelihood of you having to bench one of them, like multiple times throughout the playoffs is. If it's not that great, if there's not a lot of nights where they're all three teams are playing on the same night, then yeah, I think I'd be fine to keep all three in a scenario like this. Just take the volume and let it kind of wash out the way it will. That's typically what I do in heavy goalie point setups. Is I'm trying to find three guys with good volume. I'm trading these guys in and out because typically I'm not gonna just sit there if one of them's playing terribly. But all three of these guys should have pretty good volume. Josh is done and will listen later. Much love. Cross them streams with cream dreams. Will do. LOL Max O, would you be trading for Kaprizov playoff weeks 22 to 24? I mean, you could trade for Kaprizov, but I'm not giving up almost anything of value at this point unless I'm like, number one in the league by far and the buy is locked up and everything. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can take this shot. I can afford to give up this, kind of a little bit more bottom of the roster kind of player on my team and just take the shot that Kaprizov does get back. Maybe it's only for even a few games of week 24, but even that might be worth it. So yeah. I would entertain the thought of trading for Kaprizov, but it would have to be in a spot where it's like next to nothing that I'm giving up. CG, thank you. One more question, please. 12 team points, no riffs. Playoffs weeks 23, 24. Weekly locks. Have Riley as fourth D man. Want to drop him. Best waiver options: Faber, Falk, or Lowry. 23 and 24. What does Boston have? They go only 2 games in week 23, but 4 games in week 24. It's not ideal. And then Faber, Minnesota has 4 games in both. Faber's on the top power play right now. I think I would go Faber there at the moment. I wouldn't lock it in, right now. I wouldn't say like I'm picking up Faber and he's absolutely the guy all the way to the end now. But I think Faber is the best of the four defensemen you're talking about there. Mr. Kevin, any take on Husso to Anaheim in terms of Gibson? I have to wonder if that's preparing for Gibson to be gone finally. Yeah, so if you didn't hear yet, Ville Husso was traded by Detroit to Anaheim for future considerations. I did see a tweet came out shortly after from Frank Saravalli saying that this doesn't really have anything to do with Gibson. In the AHL, their number one goalie, Kelly Klein, is dealing with an injury and they really want their AHL squad to make the playoffs. They get the players down there that kind of experience. So really, it's just a move to shore up the AHL team. They expect Gibson to be back not too long. Trevor's in here. Let's go. Need my Monday night updates? Absolutely. Sports and stocks. Nate, would you ever consider joining a baseball league? Think you'd have a blast? Fantasy baseball is really fun, especially at rotisserie settings. I did play fantasy baseball for a number of years when I had a lot more time on my hands, mostly in my college years. But yeah, it's just another sport to keep up with. I can barely keep up with. I try to keep up with fantasy football because I have friends that I play fantasy football with, and good community around that. But yeah, to keep up with another sport to the level that that I would have to keep up with it to feel good about it for myself. Yeah, don't think I'll be able to dig that deep on baseball. At least as long as I'm doing this personally. But yeah, I do like fantasy baseball. I have played it. Um, I do like rotisserie in baseball actually as well. That was good format for that specific sport in my mind. But yeah, probably not going to happen anytime soon while I'm doing the podcast. Nestle Soulhouse, thanks for the reply. Love the pod. Appreciate you. PB Stars, hey Nate, how would you rank Nyes, Heedle, and Zucker? Interesting. Yeah, without any further clarification, I'm just gonna kind of assume a basic point setup here. Um, yeah, I think Heedle has some legroom to work his way up. Zucker, I do think is a huge risk to be traded with Buffalo kind of tanking their season, more or less at this point. I think they're still last. Are they still last in the East? That was the last time I checked. Might have been a few weeks ago at this point, but they're still pretty far down there regardless. So I do expect them to be trading. Yeah, they're still last in the East. They do have some games in hand, but still. So I do expect them to be trading some players. Zucker really looks like a guy that another team would love to add to their third line. Um, yeah, so I expect Zucker to be gone, to be honest, at this point. Nyes, I think his role is relatively secure, so I think Nyes is potentially the most bankable option here. Hedel, I think, has the most upside, though. Could end up really taking off potentially if he can find some chemistry. I think just for the safety factor, I would take Nyes, but then Hedel, then Zucker last. Frank says, Heischer, Sorelli, Lowry, Nichushkin off IR, but still on my fantasy IR. Unable to make moves unless I drop players. Do I drop any of my IR guys or Zetterlund, Dorofiev, Nason, Meyer, Rossi, Fiala? Oh, so all of those are on your fantasy are on your IR. Okay, I got you. So Zetterlund, I would drop after the game tonight. He's playing tonight. I'm gonna give you the Sunday, Monday in this week, and then you can drop him, and I wouldn't feel bad about that. Bring back Heischer there. Nichushkin, I would definitely take over some of these players. Probably over. That is an interesting setup. It would be Nason or Meyer for me at the moment. Um, which one would I take between Nason and Meyer at the moment? We're getting to the point in the season where, on the full course of the season, I was always saying I would rather Meyer just because the upside is higher. It's a better player, more talented player. But we're getting to the point in the season where you're only really looking at specific results for a very finite number of weeks, and so the deployment is starting to matter more and more and more as we get towards the end of the season here, right? Um, so I think I would take Nichushkin. I might want to see the lines from practice before I make any moves, but I think I would take Nichushkin over Meyer. I would drop Lowry and Sorelli. LOL Maxo trade comparables for Celebrini for better playoff schedule. That's an interesting question. I guess I could. What's Celebrini's rostership? I did do this with Blake, where we talked about his rostership's only 61% still, which is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. Did he get in on this goal? Yeah, another assist in the game here. That's ongoing as I'm streaming here. But Celebrini, let's see. I'm going to go centers only just to cut down the amount of players that I'm going to have to filter through. But let's go see some players that are in this range. Joel Eriksson Ek could be a good look. Could you shoot a little higher, maybe? I don't honestly know if there's anybody a little bit higher. That's a huge target for me. I'm trying to look through here. Yeah, I don't think you're getting like a Nico Heischer level player for Celebrini. I'd love to do that, but I don't think you're getting them. Yeah, Seth Jarvis maybe get the try eligibility if that helps you out. That could be a look. Is there anybody a little higher up? I don't think you're getting Carter Verhaeghe, but I'd at least send that offer. Yeah, something in that range, I think. Is Celebrini too much for Kaprizov? That's an interesting question. If Celebrini is really not going to get in your lineup because of how bad that schedule is, then no. If he's going to at least play some games for you in the playoffs, then it might be. Um, yeah, if you have a bye and you're avoiding that week 22 where they only play 2 games with no off nights, then maybe hold Celebrini. Then I would trade sorry. If you're got a bye and you're past the week 22 where they only play the 2 games, then I might hold Celebrini in that scenario. If you're gonna have to play in week 22, then I think I would trade Celebrini for Kaprizov. Interesting question though. Sebastian, would you drop Stankoven, Nason, or Dorofiev to free up some space for streamers in the following weeks? Stankoven for sure, yes. Mr. Kevin, what's your lease for a goalie like Nedeljkovic? One bad game the other day, but I tend to hold too long. Yeah, for me in this specific scenario, it's going to be 2 games for Nedeljkovic. If he blows up again, then I would drop him. Um, yeah, it's a spot where I do expect him to get some decent volume, like 2 out of every 3. And Pittsburgh like hasn't played that terribly, I don't think, under the hood. So I think that it's a reasonable spot for a goaltender to perform, and I do think that Nedeljkovic could have a decent run. I don't think he's like a number 1 goalie by any stretch, but can he be a number 2 goalie? Absolutely. Sidonian Knight. Standard points plus some bangers waiting. Got to drop to activate Jenner and Quinn Hughes soon. Who to drop? Did you put it in here? I don't think I've got who you're dropping, who your options are. If you got your options in here, let me know. All right. Yeah. I was looking through the comments just to see. BB Star says, thanks, Mr. Kevin Binnington or Kemper rest of season in an OP goalie points league. St. Louis splits 2 of 3 consistently. Benner Hofer, so it's not the full starter value from him. Yeah, I would take Kemper there pretty conclusively. Michael Rowland hits only worth 0.3 in my league, so maybe Cider isn't. Oh, going back to the Cider question, good. So maybe Cider isn't the best option. I was also looking at Bouchard as a potential 1-for-1 with maybe Bratt or Hagel or HS. Is it worth it? Yeah, absolutely. I would do that for any of those 3. Wow, thoughts on Duchesne and Marchment, rest of season, 12-team league, goals are 3, assists are 2, plus minus is 0.5, penalty minute is minus 0.25, shot on goal 0.25, block 0.5. Yeah, Duchesne and Marchment, Duchesne's on the top power play right now, so I'm liking that. That's a good spot for him for sure. He's definitely kind of a tier above Marchment at the moment, but I do think Marchment holds a place in a 12-team league for sure. The yeah, the settings don't scare me off of Marchment really there. He's on the edge of, do I hold this guy rest of season or do I is he just a streamer? So still haven't fully made up my mind on him. If he went cold, I would not feel too bad about dropping him, but yeah. Sidonia thought he deleted that comment. No worries. Love the pod. What do you think about Slav? You think looks like he's line 1 with Caulfield and Suzuki. Yeah, so Slavkovsky is an interesting one for sure. We'll throw him in the sheet here. I keep kind of hoping that he's going to do what he did last year and just kind of break out a little bit and just kind of have that end to the season that he had last year. So far, that hasn't really happened. I did have kind of a fun night there the other night. I think it was like 5 shots, 8 hits, had a goal. So that was good to see, but we're going to need to see more of that. It's just been impossibly hard for him to shoot pucks on the net this year for some reason, and I can't really figure that out because the situation hasn't really changed all that much for him. Kind of thought what he put together at the end of last season he would be able to carry forward into this year. So I'm holding space for Yuri Slakowski to be able to break out once again at the end of this year, but we're running out of time at this point. So yeah, I'm hopeful, but I'm not expectant, I guess is what I would say. All right. Got through the comments for now. Keep them coming if you got more, but I got to get into the list. The number 1 player, Brock Besser, requested by the Apples and Genius Discord server. Specifically, Blake asked this question, and especially to do with the possibility that Brock Besser could get moved here by Vancouver. If he gets moved, like the thing with Brock Besser is he's never been a player that like really shows out. He's always been a very solid player, very good player, but not like the underlings have never said that Brock Besser should be an elite level player. So yeah, my question is, where is he going? Because I think there is a wide range of outcomes depending on where he goes. He could go to somewhere and he's just like a second line, second power play winger for that new team, and they're happy with that. And that would obviously be a huge hit to him. You see, for Vancouver, he's been playing over 18 and a half minutes. Underlying numbers look pretty decent. The shots are not quite there, but the individual scoring chances are. So that part looks okay. Um, yeah, that's the problem. There's also another scenario where he goes to a different team that actually does have a hole in the top power play that they're looking to fill, and they're looking for what Brock Besser can do there, and it could be a better situation for him than Vancouver. So I think this is a spot where there's actually a pretty wide range of outcomes for Brock Besser if he does get moved, and it is going to be team dependent. Would I, make a move for Brock Besser based on the possibility that he gets moved? That's a tough question to ask, right? It really does depend where he could potentially go. I don't know that there are a lot of spots that make a lot of sense that I'd be truly excited about him going. So that's my biggest question: is where does he go? Yeah, where does he go? Where it's just like a slam dunk that now Brock Besser is going to be a lot better. I don't know that that spot exists in my mind as of right now. So yeah, I think I would place the odds at over 50% that it's a worse situation for Besser if he does get traded than if he doesn't. And for that reason, I think I am probably not going to be, looking to acquire him or anything at this point. Adrian Kempe, number two on the list, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last five, 19 minutes, average time on ice, 42nd shots per 60, 63rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 54th in Corsi, 4 per 60, 143rd in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On the season, it's a 38 goal, 70-point pace for Adrian Kempe. The underlying numbers look somewhat reasonable in terms of what you'd expect from him. I kind of think this is who Adrian Kempe is. It's worth noting, that the Fiala line is really carrying the mail there for the Kings at the moment, and that's just kind of led to. I don't know if you'd even call it a reduction, but like Kempe had a 16-minute 26 game in the first game back here against Utah. He skates 17:39. So it's just a spot where he might not necessarily need to skate 20 minutes, right? If the other lines are doing better. And you see that reflected a little bit. The average time on ice over the last 5 games, a little bit down, even less than half a minute, but a few seconds down from where it's been on the season. And I think that could continue. We've got second half Fiala here, and he's rocking. So that could continue for Kempe. But baseline expectation, I kind of expect him to continue on the pace he's been on. Cole Caulfield, 2 goals, 3 points in his last five, just over 18 minutes average time on ice. 93rd shots per 60, 13th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. The on ice numbers, pretty solid as well. It's a 39 goal, 72-point pace for Cole Caulfield on the season. Yeah, I think Cole Caulfield lives in this range. I think he could do a little bit better on the assists rest of season, especially if Slavkovsky comes on or Line A figures it out again. Yeah, it's a spot where I trust a player. It's a little bit hard to trust a team, obviously, but yeah, I'm not worried about Cole Caulfield in any way. I think that Montreal has a good playoff schedule. I think it's 11 games, 3 off nights in weeks 22 through 24. 13 games, 6 off nights in weeks 23 through 25. So it's a good spot in terms of the playoff situation for Cole Caulfield. I'm pretty happy if I've got Caulfield on a roster. Zach Hyman, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last five, 18 and a half minutes average time on ice, 228 shots per 60, 71st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Underlying metrics have been down here. Obviously, this goes back before the Four Nations, and I don't like to really ding players for stuff that happened like 3 weeks ago because so much has changed. If he had some sort of injury is working through, maybe it got a lot better over the last little bit. That's entirely possible. Hyman has been really, really hard done by this year. 41% IPP is ridiculous. He definitely should be doing better. I would expect him to get back to like a 65, 70 point pace, but with the big caveat that he has to play alongside McDavid at even strength. And in order for him to get there and stick there, like he did for much of last year, he's gotta he's gotta play better. Essentially, he's got to actually find a way to get these pucks into the net. I think that comes for Zach Hyman. This last stretch is not particularly lovely to look at, but I don't have a great reason to say why that can't come for Zach Hyman moving forward. Timo Meier, we've talked a little bit about so far, but just 1 assist in his last 5. Got demoted out of the top 6. The underlying numbers have tanked a little bit. Not a good scene for Timo Meier overall. 21 goal, 54 point pace on the season. Underlying numbers on the season still look terrific, but as I mentioned, not so good in the last little bit. The problem with Timo Meier is that, it really does appear like there's no chance he gets on power play 1. Even when Stefan Noesen went down, it was not Timo Meier who got on the top power play, which is utterly ridiculous in my mind. I'm fully on board with let your best players go out there and let them figure it out. And in 99% of the cases, they will. I don't know what it is about Timo Meier, but I don't feel like I can trust him rest of the season. I don't think I can trust Keefe's deployment of him, more importantly, at this point. So, where does that leave you with Timo Meier? I'm not dropping him, where I have him. I think he's still a plenty rosterable player in 12-team leagues. Anything deeper for sure. In 10-team leagues, I think you can drop Timo Meier, though. Barrett Hayton, 3 goals in his last 5, got them all there on Saturday. Hat trick, including 2 on the power play. Logan Cooley came back, but Hayton maintained his role on the top power play. So that was good to see. I still think the writing is kind of on the wall. Cooley is just a much more dynamic player, and in the long run, I do think Cooley reclaims his spot on the top power play, and Barrett Hayton will move down again. That being said, can Barrett Hayton play with Dylan Guenther on the second line and still be somewhat fantasy relevant? I do think so. You see this number 4th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 over the last 5 games. Really good stuff from Barrett Hayton. He does that from time to time. It does seem like he is kind of a streaky guy in this way. But yeah, I am on board with Barrett Hayton as at least a very good streamer, if not a back end of your roster kind of player. Thomas Harley, 3 goals, 4 points in his last 5, over 25.5 minutes average time on ice in the last little bit. The underlying numbers are not terrific, but I do expect them to continue to tick up with more power play time on ice, specifically with Heiskanen out. Harley is on a 15-goal, 45-point pace. I think he could be looking at a 15-goal, 60-point pace with all the power play time that he's going to get throughout the rest of the season. A 36% IPP, and he's still at a 45-point pace on the season. Everybody saw him in the Four Nations. He was terrific. I think this is a really, really good player. Hopefully, if he was dropped or if he was available in your league at some point this year, you picked him up and you're reaping the rewards, because I think he's going to have a terrific end of the season, and Dallas has a great playoff schedule as well. All right, I'm going to get back to the comments here, and then we'll close it out. Lenny. Oh, no, I got to go further back up. E says, if I had to drop one points league, Dunn or Ekblad. Dunn has been so bad recently. Yeah, I mean, Ekblad's on power play 1. Dunn is not, but Dunn's a better player, especially offensively, in my opinion. But Seattle is bad. They're kind of polar opposite players in a lot of ways, actually, the more I think about that. It's a good question. I think I would hold Dunn, but I wouldn't blame you. I think they're definitely in the same tier right now. Bruno, hey Nate, who to drop for Marchenko, Bangers Cats, Jeek, Hyman, Lehkonen, Marchessault, or Bedard? No trades in my league. Interesting. I think it's Lehkonen there just because his deployment is probably the most up in the air. I think it's Lehkonen for me. Final answer. Sidonian, what do you think happens in Columbus with Monahan back? Do they load up line 1 with Jenner and Monahan? Do Kent Johnson's minutes decline? Don't really want to hold 3 jackets. LOL, do I drop Johnson? Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I think the problem is that they're going to do whatever, like they're still in the hunt here, right? Like they're absolutely gunning for that last playoff spot. They're tied with Ottawa for the final wildcard spot at this moment in time. And so whatever makes them the best team game to game is what they're going to go with. Do they trust Adam Fantilli enough to leave him on the top line? That's a huge question. I think my most likely scenario at right now, and I do think it's not like, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if I had to guess at this moment, I do think Monahan goes back on the top line with Voronkov and Marchenko, and Fantilli goes to the second line between Jenner and Johnson. That would be my best guess as to what happens at this point. In that scenario, and if Monahan replaces Johnson on the top power play, then obviously that's a huge hit to Johnson, and you would remove Johnson. However, if Johnson stays on the top power play, then getting Adam Fantilli as his center would actually probably be a big upgrade, and so it'd actually be a net positive for Johnson. So yeah, definitely a big swing no matter what. And yeah, I think I'm like 55% confident that Monahan goes back to the top line when he gets back. Lenny, hopefully bringing Nichushkin back this week, drop Nick Schmaltz or Kiefer Sherwood, 12-team head-to-head points, goals, assist points, penalty minutes, power play points, short-handed points, game-winning goals, shots on goal, hits, blocks. This would really depend on how big the hits weight is. For me, if the hits weight is less than 1/10 of a goal, then I would drop Sherwood. Honestly, I might do it anyway, even if it was a little higher. I'm just not confident that Sherwood's going to score any points for the rest of the season. Yeah, I think it's probably Sherwood for me. CG, better rest of the season, Fiala or Kopitar? Give me Fiala there. Stonks, Zachary, generational wealth, Hyman or Brad, Attaboy, Mitchie, Marchand? That's a good question. Very valid question at this point in time. Bruins are right there in the playoff race. They're going to be gunning for it for sure. Marchand's going to have to play a lot as a result. Wow, that is a lot tougher than I thought it would be now that I'm working through this a little bit more. Wow, let me throw Marchand in the sheet. Maybe I'll pick up something here that defines it for me a little bit better. Yeah, that's not really going to help me. I think Marchand is safer, but Hyman has more upside. I think I'd go Marchand. Trevor Delfino, hey man, what are your thoughts on Bouchard rest of the season? He's not passing the eye test defensively. Think he'll get some offense going? Yeah, I think Bouchard is fine offensively. It's really just the defense that's tough, but honestly, Edmonton doesn't have anybody better. Like John Klingberg is back there. So I think Bouchard should be fine offensively. Steve, a couple more. Would you rather Ben or McMichael? I'm going to go McMichael there. I just think the ceiling's higher. I think Jamie Benn, yeah, as I said, he does seem to be on what is now a little bit more conclusively the third line in Dallas, so I'm not into it. Mr. Kevin, back to that Binnington-Kemper thing. Just sent out Binnington-Pettersson for Kemper and got accepted. I'm not worried, but you think that's good. Again, OP goalie points bangers. Assuming that's Elias Pettersson, yeah, I think you gave up a player that could bounce back, but tough to say if and when that happens. And you got to make hay while the sun shines at this point in the fantasy season. Yeah, I don't know if it's a deal that I necessarily would have done personally, but yeah, I think you got the better goalie at the end of it personally. So there's that. Chris is in here. Devils goals 5v5 are so far lower than expected. Was minus 23 at one point. Yeah, I think this is a bit of a feature of a Sheldon Keefe team a little bit. So I think there is a little bit of that going on. But yeah, I think they could benefit from a little bit more finishing. I think there's a few guys, he sure is one, who's gotten a little bit unlucky at times. Michael Rowland just did Bratt for Bouchard. Did I win this trade? Bratt's season rank is 15, while Bouchard is 63 in my league, but Edmonton has a better playoff schedule. Yeah, I think, honestly, from the team that you showed, I think you needed to shore up on defense, and I think that's a perfectly fine situation. You got to think about it in terms of over replacement as well, right? It's not just how Bratt is versus how Bouchard is in terms of rank in your league. It's how much better Bouchard is than whoever you're going to play on defense versus how much better Bratt is than whoever you're going to play on your forward group. Is Ryan Donato worth a hold for the good playoff schedule? His underlying must be nuts for the 5-game sheet. We can throw him in here, see what's going on. Yeah, he's got 4 goals, 8 points in the last five. 41st shots per 60, 78th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. I think Ryan Donato is a really good candidate to get moved by Chicago. If they can get even like a third round pick for him, they'd be ecstatic, I think. So I think it's a really good chance that Ryan Donato gets moved at the deadline here. So I don't think I'm holding Ryan Donato specifically for the playoff schedule. If you want to hold him because he's producing right now, I think that's completely valid. 19 minutes a night, producing, completely valid to hold him for now, but I do think that it's more likely than not that he gets moved at the trade deadline and that he is instantly irrelevant for fantasy purposes. Michael, and just I'm just a bit worried having Mac, Natchez, and Nukas having 3 forwards from the same team on my fantasy team. Yeah, hopefully they're all going off at the same time and it's a net positive for you. Gomer Jackson, Dobson in general, rest of season. Forgive me if already discussed in a points league. I did see that Dobson was skating. I'm going to try to find back the exact tweet here and see if I can't put some more meat on that bone in particular. Expecting Barzal to be transferred from IR to LTIR and then Noah Dobson can be activated. It doesn't really say if that's going to happen or if that's just on February 22nd was the first practice. That was on Saturday, so it's probably still a little bit more. Yeah, probably still, I don't know, some number of games still before Dobson is back, but I do think he will be back. Whether the Islanders are any good is definitely up for debate. Yeah, that's the bigger question in my mind, is whether it matters if Dobson is back. I still think that he can be a 55-ish point defenseman as a pace rest of season when he comes back, even if the Islanders are not good, because I do think Dobson is a pretty solid offensive talent. So yeah, I think that's about where I'd place him, and you can assess where that's at in your league. Mr. Kevin Wright, PD is a toss-up, and I'm in first. PD was completely expendable to me, not one of my crucial guys. Only reason I threw him in the trade, Binnington Kemper. Understood. Chris, Edmonton does a better schedule. Hopefully McDavid plays more than 1 out of his final 7 games. Yeah, at least 4 to 6 teams were scouting Donato before the break. Yeah, I do think he'll be gone. Also says Dobson should be activated tomorrow. He is eligible. Yeah, it's just a question for me because he was out for so long. I don't know that they're gonna. Again, he may have been skating a lot during the break, and we didn't really get word of that. So maybe he is back that quickly, but that would be very quick to be back from a long-term injury, in my opinion. Stonks, Wayne, the Great One Gretzky, or Blake, the Dreamer, Cross Streamer, Creamer for my 9 p.m. Saturdays, Sundays Tier 5D Beer League. You got to go with the Creamer there for sure. Michael, as Ekholm or Faber, rest of season. This is probably a toss-up, but I'll take Faber right now, just given the fact that he's on Power Play 1. All right, back to the list. We'll try to close this thing out here. Jordan Kyrou, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in his last 5. Underlying metrics have gone away big time. Yeah, it does seem like he's been minimized a little bit in the reshuffling of the lineup. Thomas and Buchnevich are being accentuated, and Kyrou is being diminished in a lot of ways, and that's concerning. St. Louis doesn't have a good playoff schedule either, so it's not like you're getting some added benefit to look forward to just in terms of raw games played or off nights or anything. So I am pretty concerned about Jordan Kyrou at the moment, especially if Schenn gets moved. That just removes another solid player for him to play with at even strength. Yeah, I am quite concerned about Kyrou rest of season. I would be trying to move off him if I could. Carter Verhaeghe, 3 goals, 6 points in his last 5. Specifically, the question asking about Verhaeghe was asking what's the effect of Matthew Tkachuk missing time. The tweet I saw today from Friedman basically said it is longer term for Tkachuk, but he is going to play again this year. Sounds to me like a good chance they, just let him get better, go to the playoffs, and they can use his LTIR to make a big acquisition at the deadline here. Wouldn't be shocking at all. So Verhaeghe, I think, is locked in on Power Play 1 as a result, and probably a good chance that he plays a lot with Barkov and Reinhart down the stretch here. I think it's probably a net positive for Verhaeghe, honestly. He's been playing obviously quite well as of late. His underlying numbers on the season are terrific. As you can see here, just across the board, he's been one of the most unlucky players in the entire NHL this year. I think this is his time to shine. and I would expect him to score at a 35-ish goal pace, 75-ish point pace rest of season. JT Miller, 2 goals, 4 points in his last 17.5 minutes average time on ice. The shots and individual scoring chance metrics are in the toilet, in the 300s. 127th Corsi 4 per 60, 154th scoring chances 4 per 60. But he is playing with Artemi Panarin, and whenever you play with Artemi Panarin, really good chance that you are going to score some points, which he is doing at the moment. Yeah, the biggest concern is obviously just ice time here. The fact that he hasn't gotten a lot there in the last few games, 1746, 1745, 1656. Yeah, he has put up points, but he is not shooting the puck and is, yeah, basically reliant on Panarin, it looks like, from the underlyings right now. Not great, but yeah, I think he's going to be just fine. But if you were expecting him to get back to what he did last year for Vancouver, that was never in the cards in my mind with this move. But I do think he'll be better than he was in Vancouver. Shane Wright has 4 goals, 3 points, 3 assists, rather 7 points in his last 5, while averaging under 14 minutes time on ice. 215 shots per 60, 171 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 19 goal, 50 point pace on the season now for Shane Wright, even though the underlying metrics have been pretty awful. 23% shooting percentage, 14.6% on ice shooting percentage. Yeah, this is basically just a percentages bender from Shane Wright. You can't get excited about a guy who's skating under 14 minutes a night, in my opinion. Nothing to see here unless he gets a lot more minutes moving forward. Kaapo Kakko, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last 5, averaging over 20 minutes a night on Seattle. Quite the feat there, but the underlying metrics look pretty terrible. He was kind of hot for the first few games when he got there, and then he settled right back down to being basically who he is, which is a not-so-great third-ish line forward. I have basically no interest in Kaapo Kakko for the standard 12-team leagues. Boone Jenner here obviously doesn't have anything really to show, but he did come in on the second line. Good spot for him there. I think they're trying to keep him away from the faceoff dot for a little bit, which makes some sense given the injury sustained. Yeah, I think Jenner can be someone, but he's not going to get power play 1 anymore, and so obviously that takes a huge chunk of his potential ceiling for fantasy purposes. I think that Jenner rather is going to do something for your fantasy team, but he's probably not much more than a streamer at this point. Kirill Marchenko, on the other hand, I think we should expect him to pretty much get back to business right away. You know, he played 16-17, had an assist, only 1 shot, 1 hit in the win against Chicago. It was kind of a blowout, so yeah, he didn't really have to do much more than that either. But yeah, I think Marchenko, you look at the season-long numbers, 32 goal, 85-point pace, 64% IPP, 14.5% shooting percentage, 13.9% on-ice shooting percentage. The on-ice shooting percentage might be a touch high, but the IPP might be a touch low, honestly. Like, I honestly think this is who Marchenko is in this current iteration of the Blue Jackets, rather, and I expect him to continue at a point-per-game pace. Filip Chytil, 2 assists in his last 5, about 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 49th shots per 60, 89th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 34th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 30th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Obviously, big new role with the Vancouver Canucks, and that's what we're really excited about for fantasy purposes. Had a 6-shot night, then a 3-shot night. Yeah, overall, I think that Chytil is in a really good spot and should be rostered in far more leagues. He's only 8% rostered on Yahoo, which is kind of a travesty. I do think that pucks are going to start going in for Filip Chytil just by virtue of the volume, even if, you know, the metrics start to fall off a little bit, or if they trade away, you know, Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, all these guys get traded away and it's just Filip Chytil there by himself. I still think that just by sheer volume alone, he is going to put some pucks in the net sooner rather than later, so I would jump on that one immediately. Joel Eriksson Ek, 1 assist in his last 4, 20 minutes a night, 6th in shots per 60, 49th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. I love the player here, Joel Eriksson Ek. I think he's running into form right now. He's starting to pump the shots the way he normally does. The biggest problem for me is that he's playing with Marcus Johansson and Vinny Hinostroza at even strength, and that is a major red flag. He can get production off power play 1 where he still is. But yeah, it's more like, can he get to a 25 goal, 60-point pace rest of season versus, where everyone was hoping that he would be. And that's the bigger question here. Is if he is just like the second line center and they load up that top line with Rossi, Boldy, and Zuccarello, then who's left for Eriksson Ek to play with? It gets pretty ugly pretty fast beyond that in Minnesota right now. So that's the tough part with Eriksson Ek, but I do like the player. I do think he's valuable in 12-team leagues, especially Bangers leagues, obviously. Cats leagues, he does that, but yeah, definitely muted with the Kaprizov injury. Lastly here, Jakob Chychrun, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points in his last 5, just under 22 minutes, average time on ice, 5th in shots per 60, 8th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 74th Corsi, 4 per 60, 81st non-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, 27 goals, 62-point pace on the season. On the season, 8th in shots per 60, 4th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 31st Corsi, 4 per 60, 21st scoring chances, 4 per 60. 48% IPP, 14.9% on ice shooting percentage is really high, 13.5% individual shooting percentage is really high. But yeah, Jakob Chychrun is a stud. Will he likely regress over the rest of the season? Yes. Does he really need top power play to maintain the 62-point pace? Yes. But also, like, what are you doing with Jakob Chychrun? You can try to sell him high, I guess, but he is going to be quite valuable for fantasy rest of season. Let's get back to the comments. Chris Wassel, groin muscle issue, what grade? That's a question. This is about Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah, that is a question for sure. Steve, last one for me tonight. Would you rather JT Miller or Rantanen rest of season? Great question. I would go Rantanen there. Like and subscribe, everyone. Appreciate you, Steve. Michael, Kreider is definitely a drop rate. Yeah, I'm dropping Kreider just about anywhere at this point. It does feel like it could be a Roope Hintz season situation from a few seasons ago where it was like a game time decision every single night. That kind of feels like where we might be headed with Kreider, and that's just going to be impossible to deal with for sure. So that's where I'm at with that. Well, I think we made it to the end of the list here. I think we answered all the comments, so I think that's going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, a terrific resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.